Mindset Athlete podcast, and I'm your host, James Roberts. I'm a two-time Paralympian and owner of James Robert Fitness, which is an online training, nutrition and mindset coaching business. First of all, I'd like to thank Lauren Williams for suggesting this quote to the show. An athlete is a mindset. It's how you prepare, think and execute. Not because of some elite status or physical stature. Anybody can be an athlete. By Chris Harth. And each week on the Mindset Athlete, we like to bring you inspirational athletes, a message, or experts talking about human optimization to teach you how to change your perception of your mindset and become 1% better. And on today's show, I've got Adam Baird. Adam joined the GB Bobsleigh setup as a pilot ahead of the 2019-20 sliding season. He made his GB debut in Winterberg on the Europa Cup circuit in December 2019 when he finished 24th alongside Lawrence Taylor. A serving member of the Royal Marines for 12 years, he began his bobsleigh career competing for the Marines and the Royal Navy in 2017. Adam comes from an active sporting background, having competed at national level in powerlifting, as well as rugby union and rugby sevens for the Royal Marines and rugby league for the Royal Marines and the Royal Navy teams. His time in the military has seen multiple deployments around the globe, including a tour of Afghanistan in 2010. So welcome onto the show, Adam.
Hey, how you doing, everyone?
To have you on. Obviously, I said you piloted alongside Lawrence Taylor. For the American audience, that is not the former American football player. So obviously you are very, very unique in terms of where your background, in terms of just the Royal Marines of, I can't think of the advert. What's the slogan? So I don't butcher it.
Well, it used to be 99.9% need not apply, didn't it? It's a state of mind now.
Is that so? It's a little bit more current and a little bit more respective of mental health.
I don't know, to be honest. I think it was a bit. I think it sort of discouraged a few people with only saying 0.01% could apply when anyone can apply. Really, it's just if you've got the state of mind to do it, the mental sort of fortitude, really, because you can make anyone fit like a Royal Marine. It's just, will your mind break, really? So I think they've gone on that avenue now.
Do you think it's when we say state of mind, do you think programs of what we were discussing off air, like Ant Middleton and other BBC programs there, that they've taken, not the best of the best, but people from general populace and taken them through multiple basic trainings and taking them to breaking point? Do you think that shows it doesn't matter how physically fit you are, it's going to test your mental resolve?
Yeah, always. I mean, anything you do in the Royal Marines, you're tested sort of physically and mentally, and it's when you the day you walk through Commando Training Centre gates at the train station, you sort of get that instilled into you straight away. Things are going to be hard, but it's like the saying goes, tough times don't last, tough people do. So you just got to sort of learn it, I think, and it's just the way we live and breathe, really. I mean, I don't really think too much about it anymore. I don't have to sort of pull myself together. It just happens because it's just what we get bred to do.
Do you think that's why you've been so successful over a multitude of sports then?
I'd like to think so. Yeah, definitely. I definitely say my sort of how well I've done in sport and stuff is definitely off the back of being a Royal Marine and passing out of commando training. Definitely. I don't know where I'd be, to be honest, if I didn't join the Corps. But I'm bloody thankful I did, to be fair.
Why do you say that then?
I don't know. I remember wanted to join the army, and then I wanted to be a pilot in the RAF, and then for some reason I just wanted to be a Royal Marine. I don't know if it was because it was the hardest one to do. for basic training or what, but I just gave myself a sort of a standard, and that was the standard I wanted to meet. Got into training, 17 years old. Just at no point did I think I'm going to leave. I need to go home. I just stuck with it and just sort of grizzed it out. It just happened.
Do you think, and this is going to be a bold statement for me to put out there,
Yeah.
do you think the Royal Marines are the hardest basic training period of any forces in the world?
Well, that's what it says on the internet. Yeah, I'd probably agree, but I can't say because I know for a fact the Paras are their sort of training is very hard and probably up there with us as well. And they are great blokes. I've worked with the Paras. There's Paras in our bobsleigh team, and they're absolutely fantastic blokes. And if we were to work together, I have no doubt in my mind we'll be on the same song sheet, same page, because they too have the same sort of mentality as what we do. The mental resilience with those guys is just phenomenal sometimes. Definitely on the same wavelength. The only difference is the sort of the badges we wear and the beret, but we're essentially we're the same blokes for sure.
And I'm interested and curious about your transition from going from rugby league, mainstays in this country. Well, I've done league, yeah. But what possessed you to, want to get into a bobsleigh and chuck yourself down the slope in the first place?
So when I first got recruited for bobsleigh, before I joined the corps, I was a powerlifter and I was pretty good at it. I was British champion. I then joined the corps, passed out training, stopped doing the powerlifting for that time because that was just no good for running around sort of the bottom field and the assault courses and Royal Marines training. So I passed out training. I got into the rugby team, and I basically got sighted because I was on the wing. I was quick anyway, and they'd obviously seen me in the gym at the competitions after I passed out, lifting decent weights, and they just said, "Look, you're pretty good athletic, sort of standard. You need to sort of give this a go." And I thought, "Nah, you're all right." And then they pestered me again the next year, and I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a go." And I just sort of fell in love with it straight away.
What was the inkling at the start then? You said, "Nah, it's not for me." Why did you have that kind of?
I think it's purely because we're sort of a summer sport, aren't we? Summer sort of Olympic, athletics, rugby, all that kind of stuff. Bobsleighing, sort of winter sports, isn't really a thing in the UK. So I think that's probably what put me off to begin with. But my only downfall was I should have done it earlier. I wish I got asked to do it as soon as I passed out training, because God knows where I could be if I did that.
By saying if you'd have started earlier, is there an element of regret or not really?
No, absolutely not, because I never had that opportunity given to me back then. As soon as I got given the opportunity, I did it, and I'm here today now in the position I am because I took that opportunity. If someone asked me 5-6 years ago or 10 years ago to do it, I'd have probably done it then. Time will come, I suppose. And when that person asked me to join the team, that was the time.
And do you think, like we were discussing off air, of now you being released from the Navy to be able to become a full-time athlete, do you think the results will come?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm working from home at the moment off a laptop because I sort of do like a logistical job for the NCHQ at the moment because of my training as well, which has really helped. And I can see already, like, I'm resting a lot more, I'm eating a lot more, all those little factors create a massive, tick in the box for being an athlete. And only too well with yourself being an athlete, it's not just going to the gym and competing, it's all the other niff-naff and trivia to some people, but actually to us it means a big thing, like your nutrition, your rest and recovery. It just means it means a massive, a lot especially when you're trying to compete at a high level.
I think we gloss over that a little bit, the aspects of rest, recovery, because it's only when you bring it up, Adam, and then I actually truly reflect on it, as I remember the importance of it. It was as important as the actual training itself. It was, I need to switch off mentally. I need to recover my body physically. Yeah. And it's just important, the amount of rep.
I think in some cases as well. Yeah, I think in some cases it's just as important as training and competing. It sort of comes in a three: rest and nutrition, training and competing. I think it all merges together. You can't have one without the other two. We can't have two without one missing. It just doesn't work.
But do you think, obviously from the environment that you come from, you need to be able to operate with limited amounts of sleep?
Yeah, which I think is it's definitely something that we can take forward with us, because, at the end of the day, we you might have to go do something as a Royal Marine Commando on exercise or on ops or something. You might have a niggle, you might have hurt yourself, but you're sort of in that mentality of it's still going to get done. There's a job to be done and it will be done. Whereas as an athlete, you might think, I need to rest that. If you're in that sort of wartime situation, there is no sort of resting. If something needs doing, it needs doing properly, unless you're actually injured badly and you need to go off the battlefield. So I think that is definitely something mentally that we've learned from being a Royal Marine or being in the military that we definitely can take with us to the athlete arena for sure.
But why do you think the Navy, when it comes to releasing people for something within the space that we live in from a social media perspective, can have an enormous impact on, their brand versus, what you were saying with the army? Oh, you're good at this. Go away. Go have at it and be a success.
I don't know, and I wouldn't really want to comment on it. I couldn't tell you. I don't know if it's just they want to invest and sort of progress their manpower more. I don't know, but it has been bloody hard to get released.
Do you think it's like I was saying before, that the historical attributes of the Navy, maybe still living in historic glory of, not Command and Conquer as a video game, but it was seen as the big Navy for so long and been feared by pretty much everybody on the high seas. Do you think a little bit of that still rubs off a little bit? They're still living with tradition?
I mean, possibly. I mean, you never know what's going through sort of the hierarchy's minds. It may well be that, yeah, absolutely. But I don't know. I honestly couldn't tell you. I'm a small fish in a big pond, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Well, that's true, and I appreciate you being honest in terms of you got to you got to tread lightly, because you still at the end of the day are a Royal Marine. You still have to report to the powers that be higher up. So I appreciate you. Well, you can't answer it wholeheartedly, which is fair enough, and I think people can accept that and appreciate that. But obviously, going forward, and if we go back to the days of your first trial run, was it very much like Cool Runnings? It was very, very much calamity.
The thing is, in bobsleigh, when you're driving or you're braking or anything like that, if once you get pushed off the start line, there is no stopping halfway down the track. You're finishing the track, whether it's upright or upside down. There's no two ways about it. So you've definitely got to have the mindset of you need to concentrate and give it your 100% effort mentally and physically for that 1 minute 12 seconds for that period of time, basically. And then you switch off. As soon as you get down the bottom, you switch off, because it is so mentally draining trying to drive a bobsleigh and remember all the lines, remember what to do if you get it wrong, how to get back on the line. There's so many variables. It is ridiculous, and you'll never understand it unless you give it a go.
So in your opinion, Adam, who's got the more bottle, the driver or the brakeman?
Oh, definitely the driver. The driver's got to learn the track, hasn't he? 100%.
Yeah, but the brakeman can't see where he's going. So he's got to have a little bit more faith with you not to crash.
Well, when he's on a training run, he can put his head up, see where he's going. But yeah, I mean, obviously, as drivers, you depend on your brakeman to not only give you the best start, but to look after the sled, sort the sled out. When you turn up to the track, you go do your track walk as a driver, and you leave your brakeman and the rest of your team to sort your sled out, and they'll sort it out, and they'll set it up how you want it to be set up, with sort of, you know, how springy you want your runners, how tight you want your bolts doing, all that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of sort of faith and trust in with each other, which goes together as a team, as you'd expect. So yeah, as drivers, we are very heavily reliant on our teammates and brakemen for sure.
You don't think of that really when be it you watch the winter games or you watch films like Cool Runnings. Ultimately, you see the extreme of crashes, things going wrong, them running after the bob, and things like that. But you don't think of the brotherhood from a different sense, be it this is a team sport versus ultimately a lot of British bobslayer and skeleton athletes have come through the forces.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think that helps to have a system within a system then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you've always got to have sort of plan Bs, plan Cs, definitely. So if I get injured or something, then as the driver, the team can't compete or do anything without me. And likewise, I can't do it without the driver, the brakeman. So I have a spare brakeman with us. If I get injured, I can always sit in. I don't have to push the sled, but we will be at a disadvantage. We'll always, there's always got to be sort of different courses of action for sure.
What's the difference between the two and the four-man bob, though, out of curiosity?
Length and how many people fit in it.
Nothing more technical than that, then?
Well, I haven't driven a four-man, and it is different steers by all accounts, but it is definitely something I'll be looking to go do hopefully next season, because it's not the same to drive as what a two-man is, just purely because of the length of it and the weight of it as well. You can hit a lot quick. You can go a lot quicker in a four-man than you can in two-man because it's a gravity sport. There's a lot more meat in the back of it, with sort of guys and girls. So yeah, it go a hell of a lot quicker, which means your action times need to be different. Your steers need to be different.
And do you think this is one way that you're going to, because you said early on you wanted to be an RAF pilot, is this as close as you're going to get to the RAF? No,
absolutely not. I've buried that hatchet a long, long time ago. I don't even think about that anymore.
No, but I mean, in terms of, oh gosh, Top Gun slogan, but, feel that, I can't remember what it is, even though they've made a remake of it recently. But in terms of having to deal with the gravitational pull of the sport and the Gforces.
I mean, as a driver, you don't really feel the Gforce because you're sat upright. You sort of just get knocked from side to side. But if you're a brakeman, your head is in between your legs because you need to get that sort of aerodynamic profile. So the lower you get, the better. You get sucked into the bottom of the sled when you're going around the big corners, especially the Kreisel, which is sort of between 180 and 360 corner. You get some real Gs in those, and yeah, you really do feel it as a brakeman for sure. That's it's definitely something I'm glad I don't experience anymore, to be fair.
But can you truly prepare yourself for those G-forces or not? Not really.
I think it's just getting on the ice and doing it. I don't think you can. I think it's pretty much sort of the same as like an F1 driver. They progress from going from, is it F3 to F2, F1, so. Different cars. You just keep going. Same with us. We polish our runners, or we have little nudges off new tracks, and then you progress it. You polish your runners up even more. You run it off quicker and quicker and quicker. which then gets you faster down the bottom of the track, which means the Gforce will be bigger as well. You'll climb the corners higher than what you would do if you were sort of nudged off. So that's probably the only way you can sort of prepare yourself.
And how long would you spend overseas? Because ultimately, we like we've discussed in the very beginning, we're a homegrown summer sport, even though we don't have the weather to go with it. But in terms of how long would you spend on, be it in continental Europe or in the North America?
So this season we're staying in Europe. America's out the question, and it would be out the question anyway because of funding. But my main priority this year with the team is to get around Europe, do the Europa Cup races, and learn as many tracks as I can. COVID dependent as well. So we've got planned from the 12th of November. We're going on ice for 5 weeks, coming home for Christmas, going back out for 3, coming home, and then going back out again for 2. So we've got 10 weeks on ice, between 10 and 11 weeks on ice, which is a fairly decent chunk. The senior teams have got quite a lot more time, just purely because they've got a lot more races to get done. I don't know off the top of my head how much that is, but they basically finish off in Beijing at the Olympic test event to test the track out, basically.
And what's up to now, Adam? What's been the hardest track for you to learn?
It's different. They're all really different tracks. I mean, I've only driven 3 tracks. 4 tracks at the moment. I went over to America and did Lake Placid. A lot of people say Lake Placid is one of the hardest in the world. I went there for a week. I didn't crash. I just applied myself. I didn't go mental with starting. I just went there to learn how to drive the track. And by all accounts, it is one of those tracks where it's a lot of rescue driving. So if you get something wrong, you can correct it quite easily. Needless to say, it will bite you in your ass if you don't get it right, because it is quite a sort of devastating track for your brakeman and you. It beats you up quite badly. So if you don't get you do have to steer in the right places, but there's a lot of sort of, you can rescue steer it, as one of the coaches put it. We're going to Altenberg this year, which is supposedly the hardest track in Europe. So I'll give that one a crack. But all the tracks vary. Königssee, which is one of my favourite tracks, that's probably one of the slowest tracks you can go to, but it's really technical. There's a lot of technical turns in it. Altenberg is a mixture, apparently, of the hardest corners in the world mixed onto one track. And there's sort of like a little story behind it where the Germans made it in secret in a wood. To create this track that was the hardest in the world, to be the best in the world. And then somebody found it one day. I'm like, what track's that? And it's obviously on the circuit now. But the Germans are the best in the world. I probably wouldn't put it down to them building a track, but they've got all the facilities. They've got 4 tracks in their country, and it's on their doorstep.
And do you think that's why they're trying to, from a progression of sport wise, do you think that when they design a new track, is trying to test the driver ultimately to just make it either more technical, put a little bit of things that they'd never seen before, just to, we've got to get the best out of that individual?
I don't know, to be honest. Obviously, it needs to be technical. It needs to be fast. And it needs to be able to put on a show, especially when it's going to the Olympic Games. It's going to be on TV for the whole world to see. With regards to making stuff that people haven't seen before, I mean, I highly doubt you're going to see a loop-de-loop anytime soon. I don't know. I don't know what goes through a bobsleigh track builder's mind, because I've never met one. The track in Beijing looks very similar to most of the other tracks. Obviously, it's got its own sort of corner sequence, and they put a Kreisel in. I don't know if there's a Kreisel on that one, which is the big loop, and that's there to slow you down at the end of the day. But it's a big pressure corner, and some of them have got different pressures, which make it harder to drive. So I mean, no one's going to know how hard that track is to drive until it's built and they throw someone off the top of it. So good luck to whoever the first person is.
Well, I think it comes down to, it's not a bottle, because you're pretty in your own way crazy, because ultimately you're doing a winter sport that's dangerous in no uncertain terms, and maybe not as crazy as, say, somebody doing either the luge or the skeleton, because there's no protection whatsoever. But in terms of, you know, the event itself, I'd say it's probably I would probably class it as, if we were to use the Summer Olympics, you know, the 100 meters is the blue ribbon event. No, if so, but in terms of my opinion, I'd say probably bobsleigh is that for the Winter Olympics.
I would agree with you as well, because it's definitely one of those sports where it's pretty much one of the only team events, I think, at the Winter Olympics.
Other than ice hockey, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it's, who doesn't love speed and people crashing, and, you know, it is an amazing sport. And, you know, whether bobsleighers like it or not, Cool Runnings made it famous. You know, the Jamaican lads are they are the most famous guys on the circuit. They made the sport essentially famous at the end of the day. So everyone knows what bobsleigh is, which is good for us.
It's fun to. No, maybe I'd say that definitely the last run of the competition is exciting, because it's ultimately, you know, the slowest to the fastest.
Yeah.
One little mistake here or there can cost you a medal.
Yeah, I mean, the sport is won on hundredths, if not tenths. I remember somebody got put out the other day, Sean Olsen, who's a ex-para, who's got a bronze medal with his brakeman, and they were doing something for Black History Month, and they were sort of the only two black guys on the circuit at the time. I think it was 1988 Nago Games, and they were saying, like, they come down, and there was three other sleds to go past them, or after them, sorry. And sort of the sled who went behind them, after them, came in 200 slower than them, which gave them a medal. And, you know, over 3 miles worth of ice on 3 different slides is, you know, that's very, very close. Very close. So yeah, it can be won. 2018, the 2-man, that was a dead heat. So the first 2 guys, the Germans and the Canadians, both gold medal over four slides. Both got exactly the same time.
So what would they do if that happened again? Would they not look to instead of having a dead heat, make them do it one more time and see if we can't separate the two?
I don't know. But they both got the gold. I think somebody missed on the silver, and then somebody got the bronze. I think that's how they work it. But yeah, that's one of the peculiar things about the sport. So it does happen.
Well, I think it brings an emotional attachment to it as well, because if you watch, well, we've got a history with skeleton women now, because we've won so many golds. But, you know, the BBC get very animated when it's that, especially that last run when I can't remember if we got two. When another country makes a mistake and it puts somebody in a better position, and probably irrespective of the country, probably every country probably does it like, especially when it's a shock medal, it'll be we kind of cross our fingers that this country makes a mistake. Ultimately, you don't want them to make a mistake, because it could be pretty catastrophic from an injury perspective. But ultimately, that's how we are as human beings. You want somebody to make a mistake if you're capitalized.
I mean, you never want to see anybody hurt themselves. That's fact, regardless if you're the worst enemy on the circuit. You know, we're competing in a sport at the end of the day. We're not fighting each other for grand. But yeah, you always do, in the back of your mind, regardless of who you are, you do wish your competitors muck up and you can capitalise on it for sure. Definitely.
But what do you put down to when somebody makes a mistake? Is it just a lack
of
human error, and that's it?
I would say so, yeah. Unless something happens with your kit, it is pretty much human error every time. And that can be from, as one of your guys slipped on the block, which has caused you a couple of hundredths, maybe a tenth on the start, which can be 3/10, 300ths at the bottom. Did your driver take his hand off the D-ring, which is the steering device, or did he get knocked a little bit? There's so many variables, and you probably will never get the same time and same speed ever again. The track changes that much, and it's all down to sort of track condition, weather, and how the track has been sort of cut as well by the ground workers. So it changes every time.
So in terms of that, then, Adam, is it probably the most complex sport? Because even ice hockey, they try and resurface the ice the same as it was the period before. Do you think that it brings a different sense of, what's the word I'm going to use? Excitement, because ultimately it's going to change from run to run.
Bobsleigh is very much F1. All the teams are trying to work out what the other teams are doing to their sleds and how the other teams are training. Everyone is always away tinkering with the sleds, trying to, get those extra 1%ers and extra milliseconds out the sled. Whether that be loosening a few bolts, making it a bit more springy, the world's the oyster when it comes to it. And everyone's always trying to work out what everyone else is doing. And I'm sort of only just beginning to realise, because I'm so junior at the sport, how much it means to actually make sure you've got your setup correct. Some teams even change their sled setup depending on tracks. And the only way you can do that is by being invested in and going to those tracks constantly, so you know exactly what works. Have you got the right sled for starters? That's going to be fast, and then you work out how to set that sled up for that particular track, and then they log it. That's where the funding comes in as well. If you've got the time and money, you're gonna be on your road to being successful. Definitely.
In this modern age, then, I'm talking, and I'm going right back to '88 and Cool Runnings. Do you think that's possible now if you were to rock up with a secondhand sled?
Probably not. No. I mean, you look at F1. Lewis Hamilton is the best driver, or is he? Is he just got the best kit? You'll never know.
They all keep trying to keep up with. I almost said McLaren then. Mercedes.
Yeah.
But Mercedes always seems to be one step ahead of the sport
because they've got the funding. They are the Germans. In F1, they're the bobsleigh guys. They've got all the funding in the world. They know they've worked out how to make those two cars the best in the world, and everyone's just playing catch up now, regardless if their drivers are the best drivers or not. Obviously, they are very good. Don't take anything away from them, but there may be somebody else who's more talented and better in a different car, which is slower. You just never know. You just never know.
But is that why people are lackluster in terms of, they lose a little bit of interest with F1 after a certain while because the same person's going to win after, if we use this.
It seems that way, doesn't it?
Well, he even won the British Grand Prix on free tyres. So.
Yeah, it does seem that way. I mean, in bobsleigh, there's not that many races to sort of compete at the same level as what Lewis is doing. Be it the Germans have won. Francesco's won. I don't think he's lost a race yet in the last couple of seasons. I don't think. Don't hold me to it. But it's definitely exciting watching him go down every time. Even if you expect him to win, it's amazing how he wins.
Yeah, if you were to lose one of your, I can't think what he's called. Skates. One of the runners.
Yeah.
It'd be a pretty catastrophic accident, though.
Yeah, and you'd be disqualified as well because you've got to, if you crash and everything comes across the line with you, then you can sort of get away with it and it's classed as a run. But if a runner comes off and doesn't cross the line with you, then it's disqualification. Whereas Lewis lost a wheel and managed to finish the race and still win. It's obviously different rules for us guys.
Well, you can't. That's what
something bad's happened if your runner's fallen off.
I'm trying to think.
Big time.
I think cool. Something like that happened in Cool Runnings.
Oh, I
They
can't
flip
remember.
upside down, but
Yeah.
obviously, is that still allowed if they were to if they were to carry it across the line? But I think
the time doesn't stop until you cross the line, and very rarely, I don't think it's even possible on race day because you're running off as fast as you possibly can. You are going to go across the finish line, regardless if you're upside down or not, because of the speed you're carrying. If you're doing training runs and it's a really slow track because it's frosty or whatever, if you crash early, you might not make the finish line, and that's the difference. But yeah, that is the rule. If you crash and still finish upside down with everyone in it and nothing's fallen out of your sled and you haven't left anything on the ice, then yeah, it's allowed. You will be probably last, but it is allowed, and you can do another run.
Do you think that's why? What in your opinion gave the Jamaicans the respect in the sport then?
I think it was just very much nobody had any faith in them because they were. I mean, there's snow's never probably ever been in Jamaica, has it? And it was just
aware of, no.
Yeah, it was just something very different for the world to see. It was like Eric the Eel jumped in the swimming pool for the first time, and Eddie the Eagle jumped on his ice skates. On his
he's not done too badly out of being what I call mediocre at best, and ultimately good on him for doing something different. Sports now massively evolved now that we won't be seeing many of those figure people in high-end sport anymore, which is probably good and bad. It's good for the performance side, but for the regular person watching at home, it probably discourages you a little bit as an able-bodied person. It's like, well, I can't relate to these people now.
I remember when Eric jumped in the swimming pool because they were talking about him on TV beforehand. I can't remember, where was he from? What country he was from?
One of the African countries. I can't remember which one specifically.
Yeah, and they were talking about him saying, "Oh, this guy doesn't he's only just learned how to swim," and everyone tuned in and everyone was cheering for him. It was a really nice thing to see, and I think for the Jamaicans, it was probably the same sort of thing for them. Same experience for them. Everyone loved the fact that these guys who've never seen ice or snow before were giving this sport a go, and now they've got a full-time team, and I know them very well. They're really nice guys.
I think the story needs to be redone because I had the fortune of interviewing one of the guys who was in the real team, and he said ultimately, Disney kind of fantasized a little bit, and some of the things, some were not true. And if they were told the real story, I think would have a massive impact on people. What if you did do like a documentary, like Michael Jordan type thing? It would give the sport even more respect because it's like, I think one of one of the brothers had to step in because somebody got injured. Well, that doesn't happen in modern day Olympics because you can't do that because you can't just because you've got to do, and I give some people some inside knowledge with this. You've got to get your accreditation. I guess something ridiculous. It's at least 6 to 12 months ahead of time. So you have to nominate loads of people. And if you're not on that list,
you ain't going.
Definitely not be competing in the modern Olympics. So it was 2 years after I was born. So it was 32 years ago. So sport has evolved probably to stop and illicit cheating, because ultimately if you could pop in somebody that's better than somebody else at the last minute, you're going to do that. So it's probably to discourage things like that, but it does make it relatable as, even being the little minnows. And, they referred to themselves of wanted to be like the Swiss.
Yeah, they are some of the best guys in the world, are the Swiss, yeah, for sure.
But coming back to you and GB, and we've got historic success as well.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's kind of been a little bit lost, like a lost generation in terms of we've kind of gone massively under the radar to almost non-existent?
I don't know. I mean, as I say, we've got some of the best athletes. The GB1 team are they could be getting medals, 100%. They've got some of the best athletes in the world, and they've managed to acquire themselves some of the best kit in the world now as well. So I have no doubt in my mind, in 2 years' time, if Brad and his crew were on the podium, because they are focused, and it's exactly how I want my team once I've got them nailed down to be, because they are definitely the team to be to look forward and sort of base your own team off in GB, for sure. The only difference is they've been on the ice a lot more than everyone else. They've got sort of the profile, they've got the sponsorship that are looking after them, whereas us guys who are starting out are finding it really difficult, especially in COVID time, to get the sponsorship money going, just to sort of get our foot in the door. We've got loads of potential, and it's just sort of having that mental aptitude to just keep going, don't give up, which is what I'm not going to do.
Is it a sense of, trying to sell somebody a concept now a little bit more when it comes to sponsorship as well? Because you are raw.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got quite a bit in sort of my portfolio from other than bobsleigh. So I've got like British record in powerlifting, played rugby quite a good level. And obviously the Royal Marines thing as well really does help. And a lot of people want to help you for that. And I've had somebody helping me from PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he's basically shown me how to sell your team, how to be a networker, all that kind of stuff. And it was stuff that I've never sort of had my eyes open to before, because I've never needed to. I'm very thankful for Paul Spanner for helping me do that. I'd probably be lost without him, to be fair. I wouldn't have generated the sponsorship I have done already without him. That's definitely fact. Yeah.
And obviously, I know people listening can tell that you and I probably could have a conversation for hours.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So that moved me nicely to my penultimate question that I like to ask every guest, is if you had the opportunity to sit down with any athlete, dead or alive for that matter, who would that be and why?
I would probably say Chris Hoy. One, because he is British, and two, he's, in my eyes, and fact, the most successful Olympian of all time for Great Britain, isn't he? And just sort of pick his brains on what he did when he woke up and go to sleep, in that time frame in between. Because obviously he nailed what it is to be a successful Olympian. He's definitely someone I'd like to sit down and chat with.
And my final question, Adam, before we wrap up the episode, is if you were to summarize what we've been speaking about into one sentence for people to take away, what would that be?
Always believe in yourself, set yourself a goal, don't give up. Tough times don't last, but tough people do.
So once again, Adam, thanks again for coming on the Mindset Athlete podcast.
No problem, James.
If you like this episode, please do share it with your friends, and do let Adam and I know what you thought of the episode by tagging us over on Instagram at Beardy1000. So I'll spell that out. That's BAIRDY 1000. So the number 1000. And at the usual James O Roberts 11. And again, I'll spell that out for you. That's JAMES, the letter O, ROBERTS, and the number 11. And again, you can do the same on Twitter and Facebook. And in addition, if you had any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to shoot them over as well. And finally, don't forget to check out Adam's website, Baird-GB-Bobsleigh.racing. So that's BAIRD-GB-Bobsleigh, BOBSLEIGH.racing. And as always, don't forget to check out my free content at fitamputee.co.uk. click on the tab resources. And not forgetting, I've also started a new Facebook group, especially for the podcast, which you can find by typing in The Mindset Athlete. And finally, all the links will be in the description. You can find all the show notes at mindsetgame.libsyn.com under the category General. So once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next week for another episode of the Mindset Athlete podcast.